Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. In the world of global politics, what makes a country a country? Is it just having a flag and a piece of land? The answer is far more complicated, and it hinges on something called diplomatic recognition. Think of it as the unseen handshake that decides whether a new nation gets a seat at the world's table or is left standing outside in the cold. It's not just paperwork, it's a powerful political tool that can determine the fate of millions. Today, we're navigating this complex world to understand who decides what makes a state. At the heart of this entire debate are two competing ideas. The first is the constitutive theory. Popular in the 19th century, it says an entity only becomes a state when other states recognize it. Recognition literally constitutes or creates the state. Without that approval, you have no legal rights on the international stage. But this has a major problem. It makes statehood dependent on the political whims of powerful nations, creating a chaotic system where a country might exist for some, but not for others. In response, the declaratory theory emerged and is now the dominant view. It argues that recognition is just a formal acknowledgement of a reality that already exists. An entity becomes a state when it meets a set of objective criteria, whether other countries have formally said so or not. The most famous list of these criteria comes from Article 1 of the 1933 Montevideo Convention. There are 4 key requirements. First, a permanent population. There's no minimum number, you just need a stable community of people. Second, a defined territory. You need control over a specific geographical area. Border disputes don't necessarily disqualify you, but you need a core territory. Third, a government. You must have an effective government that can maintain order and provide basic services. And fourth, the capacity to enter into relations with other states. This basically means sovereignty, the ability to act independently on the world stage. In practice, though, the line between these two theories is blurry. If you meet all 4 Montevideo criteria but literally no one recognizes you, you'll find it almost impossible to function as a country. So, while the law might be on your side, politics holds the ultimate key. The act of recognition itself isn't a simple yes or no. There are different flavors. The most important distinction is between de jure and de facto recognition. De jure recognition is the whole package. It's full, final, and unconditional. It means the recognizing state says, yep, you're a legitimate state, and we're ready for full diplomatic relations. This usually involves opening embassies and exchanging ambassadors. It's considered permanent and hard to take back. De facto recognition, on the other hand, is more tentative. It's a practical acknowledgement that a government exercises effective control over a territory, but it stops short of judging the long-term legitimacy of that control. It's a pragmatic first step. For example, the United Kingdom recognized the Soviet state de facto in 1921 to allow for trade, but only gave full de jure recognition in 1924. It's like saying, we see you're in charge for now, so let's do business, without endorsing how you got there. It's also crucial to distinguish between recognizing a state and recognizing a government. Recognizing a state is about acknowledging its existence as a sovereign entity, and this is generally permanent. Recognizing a government is about acknowledging that a specific group has the authority to represent that state. This can change, especially after a coup or revolution. In the past, formally recognizing a new government could imply approval of how it came to power. To avoid this political awkwardness, many countries, including the US and UK, adopted what's known as the Estrada Doctrine. Instead of making grand declarations about new governments, they simply decide whether to maintain or withdraw their diplomats. It's a pragmatic approach that focuses on the reality of who is in control, rather than passing moral judgment. So, what's at stake? Why is this recognition so important? The consequences are huge, and they fall into 3 main categories: legal, political, and economic. Legally, a recognized state gets all the rights of an international person. This means it can sign binding treaties, establish embassies with diplomatic immunity, sue in the courts of other countries, and apply for membership in organizations like the United Nations. Politically, recognition is the ultimate stamp of legitimacy. It solidifies a state's standing in the world. For a new nation, being recognized by major powers can be the difference between survival and collapse. Non-recognition, on the other hand, is a powerful sanction. The Stimson Doctrine, for instance, holds that states should not recognize situations created by illegal force. This was used against Japan's puppet state of Manchukuo in the 1930s and Rhodesia's illegal declaration of independence in 1965. But it's the economic consequences that are often the most tangible for a country's population. Full recognition unlocks the global economy. Recognized states can join the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which is critical for accessing loans and development aid. They can engage in international trade far more easily. Without recognition, even basic things become a nightmare. For example, Kosovo struggled for years because it couldn't get its own international dialing code, or SWIFT codes for banking, severely hampering trade. Foreign investors are also wary of putting money into a place with an uncertain legal status. This economic power has led to something called checkbook diplomacy, where financial aid is basically exchanged for a vote of recognition. This has been a central feature of the long-running diplomatic battle between China and Taiwan. To see how this all plays out, let's look at some real-world examples. Taiwan is perhaps the most famous case. After the Chinese Civil War, the defeated government fled to Taiwan. For decades, it was recognized by the UN as the government of China, but in 1971, the UN switched recognition to the People's Republic of China on the mainland. Since then, Beijing has pressured countries to de-recognize Taiwan, often using its immense economic power as leverage. Today, despite being a stable democracy with a powerful economy that meets all the Montevideo criteria, Taiwan is excluded from most international organizations. Its story shows how raw political power can override legal definitions. Then there is Kosovo, which declared independence from Serbia in 2008 after a brutal conflict. Many countries, including the US and most of the EU, recognized it. However, Serbia and its powerful ally Russia refused to do so. With Russia holding veto power on the UN Security Council, Kosovo is blocked from full UN membership, leaving it in a state of geopolitical limbo. Palestine offers another complex story. It has been recognized by a majority of the world's countries and even holds non-member observer state status at the UN. This allows it to join bodies like the International Criminal Court, but it still lacks full UN membership due to the veto of the United States. Its long campaign for recognition shows how a political conflict can keep a nation from achieving full statehood. Perhaps the most curious case is Somaliland. Located in the Horn of Africa, it declared independence from Somalia in 1991. It has its own government, currency, military, and has held democratic elections. By all accounts, it ticks the boxes of the Montevideo Convention. Yet, not a single country in the world recognizes it. This is largely because the African Union is committed to preserving colonial-era borders, fearing that recognizing Somaliland would encourage other secessionist movements across the continent. This lack of recognition has crippled its economy, cutting it off from international aid and investment. Just as recognition is a powerful tool, so is its withdrawal. Derecognition is rare and controversial, but it's a very real part of modern geopolitics. Again, we see this most clearly with Taiwan. As China's global influence grows, it has successfully persuaded a growing number of small, often developing nations to switch their allegiance from Taipei to Beijing, usually in exchange for generous aid and investment packages. This practice is highly destabilizing, turning a state's very existence into a bargaining chip in great power rivalries. And as if all that weren't complex enough, New challenges are pushing the boundaries of what it means to be a state. Take climate change. The Montevideo Convention requires a defined territory and a permanent population. But what happens when rising sea levels threaten to completely submerge island nations like Tuvalu or the Maldives? Can a state exist without territory? Can a government in exile retain its UN seat? International law has no clear answers. Tuvalu is already planning for this, working on creating a digital version of itself to preserve its culture and statehood in the metaverse. This will force the world to rethink the very definition of a country. Another frontier is cyberspace. Estonia, a leader in digital governance, has pioneered the concept of e-residency. This program offers a government-issued digital identity to anyone in the world, allowing them to start and run an EU-based company entirely online. While it doesn't grant citizenship, it's a fascinating step toward decoupling economic functions from physical territory. It hints at a future where aspects of statehood might exist in the digital sphere, creating a whole new set of rules for recognition. In the end, the path to becoming a recognized country is a political and legal minefield. While legal frameworks like the Montevideo Convention offer a guide, the reality is that recognition remains a profoundly political act, driven by strategic interests, historical alliances, and economic power. It is the currency of legitimacy in our global system. The struggles of places like Taiwan, Kosovo, and Somaliland show that meeting the definition of a state is often not enough. Their fates are decided in the high-stakes game of international relations. Recognition is more than just a formal nod. It's the process by which the world decides who belongs, who gets a voice, and who is granted the right to participate as an equal on the global stage. It is, and will remain, one of the most fundamental and enduring puzzles of our world. Thanks for tuning in to Fun Facts Online.